We're at the old Whiskey Ridge farm. It used to be, it encompassed more than 700 acres. This barn is a very old hand-hewn timbers in this barn. It's very well built, but suffered terribly from a termite infestation years ago. But fortunately, it's been brought back and should be here for another 100, 150. If we're all lucky and behave, it'll be in good shape. We basically lifted this barn and replaced all of the timbers that came in contact with the ground, including the posts and the floor joists and the floor.
I like old buildings, and I have a lot of respect for the heritage of Frederick County, and I just enjoy old. They're so awesome, and they're so much better than new buildings. This barn matched all of my other buildings. I have other old, you saw I have an old log structure. My home is a pre-Civil War brick home, so it just went with the property. When you drive over the knoll down there, you can see this barn from a mile away. It's not a big landmark, but it's special.
Each of the restoration projects comes with its own set of challenges. In this case, we're on top of a hill in wide open country. And as we lift this building up to replace the various parts necessary, we have to ensure that it's not going to blow away next time the wind gets up. We actually had this building tied to the ground in 4 different places with huge timbers that were buried underground and pins that were driven into the ground to hold it in place while we lifted it. Usually, the first areas of failure with these barns is that the gutters and the downspouts are abused and fail, and the water then coming off the roof goes right into the foundation and damages the foundation. Another common area of failure is in the roof. This barn is a little different. It has a good roof on it and always has had. Underneath that standing seam metal roof is a wooden shingle roof, both of which are still in very good condition and both of which are still very old. This barn suffered from the other direction, the insects coming up out of the ground, termites got to it.
This farm was known as a Jones farm, and it was handed down for 5 generations, from 1850 to 1972, 5 generations of Jones to Jones to Jones. So I'm the 5th owner. I just feel that I should keep these buildings and to keep them in good condition.
This barn was built about 1898. It was built by Mr. Hilton. Mr. Hilton worked out of the Barnesville area, but he built barns all over the western Montgomery County and southern Frederick County areas. We're very close to Sugarloaf Mountain right now. This barn is part of a complex of farm buildings, including a corn crib and a machine shed and a chicken coop, and of course the farmhouse. We're restoring this barn. This barn suffered from the typical neglect. It needed a new roof, it needed new gutters, and the siding had deteriorated. The original siding on this barn has just recently been removed. Now that's been on the barn for over 110 years. We're going to replace it with the same type of siding, although brand new, hoping that we'll get another 110 years out of that. We've also performed various timber frame repairs to the barn. Usually the timbers that are on the ground at the foundation deteriorate. We've replaced most of those. We've also replaced the roof rafters because the roof had failed and the rafters had begun to decay. When we're finished with this barn, it will continue to serve agrarian purposes, although those are different now than when this barn was first constructed. When this barn was first constructed, it was the heart of the farm. All of the animals were kept here. Most of the food for those animals were kept in this barn. Well, farming technology has changed tremendously. Although this barn will continue to work in a farm, it will now just have sheep and horses and goats in it, and the hay and the feed for them. I see the future of barns in Frederick County as very promising and bright. We've come through a very sad time as the farming industry has changed in many ways. Barns are really not practical in most modern farming operations today. So we've lost a lot of them. But as our society has become more and more conscious of environmentally friendly construction methods, most people are recognizing that when we construct any building, if we can construct that building to last for centuries, we are using our natural resources in a much better way. Measure the life expectancy of these buildings by centuries, not decades. That's a waste of our resources, it's a waste of money. When our great-grandparents put the barns here, they built the barns for their great-grandchildren. It was an expensive investment for them in 1898. But they made that investment not just for themselves, but for their children and their grandchildren.
If you've grown up on a farm, and if you're a real true farmer, and not just an amateur like me from Bethesda, the very idea of being able to keep this gorgeous thing on your property, where everybody driving by will say, "Look, honey, look at that lovely barn," it's worth its weight in gold. And it's the thing that your kids will remember, that you will remember, and that your neighbors and everybody passing by is going to say, "Gee, thank you. We really liked looking at your barn. It's gorgeous."